What's up, Ragin Nation? How's it going? This is Alex Yu, and you're watching the DC edition of the Ragin Nation Show. This is just Websters. We're talking about all things matter to me in the DC Extended Universe. This is episode number 45, and in this episode, we got some big news because Warner Brothers Studios just announced that they got 2 more films added into the DC Extended Universe release calendar. Now, we got a lot of films coming out from the DC Extended Universe. Justice League Parts 1 and 2, Wonder Woman, Suicide Squad coming out later on in the summer. And then there's Aquaman, The Flash, Cyborg, Shazam, Green Lantern Corps. And now there's 2 more films. Those 2 release dates are October 5th, 2018 and also November 1st, 2019. No word on what those films could be, but I kind of have an idea what I think they would be. Now, before I mention what those films could be, let's talk about another item that has to do with the DC Extended Universe release date. Looks like Warner Brothers Studios has been shifting around some of their release dates because Wonder Woman is no longer going to be released on June 23rd, 2017. In fact, it's going to be released 3 weeks earlier on June 2nd, 2017. Now, originally with its initial release date, it would have gone up against Transformers 5. And I always thought that Wonder Woman's gonna move. Just because Michael Bay is not going to shift his release date. He's always been releasing his Transformers films on that, around that time frame. So Wonder Woman shifting release dates is not a big surprise to me. So it's not going up against Transformers 5. It is instead going to be going up against Bad Boys 3, which is released on the same date, which is June 2nd. And now, of course, Bad Boys 3 is no longer going to be directed by Michael Bay. It's directed by Joe Carnahan. But still, it is going up against a franchise that used to be associated with Michael Bay. But anyway, so that's what's happening. Now, as for those 2 films, what could they possibly be? Now, I'm pretty positive that Warner Brothers already know what those films could be. And they have a list of films, but it really all depends on the success of the release of this year's DC Extended Universe films. And really, there are only 2, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Suicide Squad. And Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice is in no way a failure. It has already reached $700 million worldwide by the time it got to its second weekend of release. That's just 10 days, so that is incredible. But then there's also Suicide Squad, which I think is going to be an even better film than Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice in quality. I think it's going to be a film that is going to surprise a lot of audiences, but Warner Brothers Studios, I'm pretty sure that they're banking on the success of these 2 films. They have their own definition of success, but they're going to see how these 2 films do before they make their decision on what those 2 new films are going to be. Now, if Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice is a success, whatever that may be, then I'm pretty sure that one of those 2 films, or one of those 2 release dates, is going to be either a Batman film, like the solo Batman film, which is tentatively titled The Batman, or a Man of Steel sequel, Man of Steel 2. Now, as for the other film, that would depend on the success of Suicide Squad. Now, there's already been talk about a Suicide Squad sequel. Apparently, David Ayer and Will Smith are already in talks to be signed on for the sequel for Suicide Squad. That's how much confidence that Warner Brothers has in Suicide Squad. So I'm thinking, like I said, these 2 release dates could either be a Man of Steel sequel, a Batman solo film, or a Suicide Squad sequel. And it all depends on how this year does. Now, speaking of Batman vs. Superman, Batman vs. Superman suffered one of the biggest box office drops in history, ever. We're talking about a massive drop, and while, you know, massive drops is no surprise, we're talking about a film that that was a highly anticipated film that opened big, but it just dropped down to a very to a much smaller box office take the second weekend. Now, on the first weekend, Batman vs. Superman took in 170 million, which after the re-estimation, it ended up being 166 million. But then on the second weekend, it took in like $51 million on the second weekend, and that was a 70% drop. That is huge. And when you look at the two Fridays, when you compare the first Friday and the second Friday, the first Friday did like 80 million and the second Friday did 15 million. That's an that's like an 81% drop. That is ridiculous. So box office analysts are suspecting that Batman vs. Superman is going to end anywhere between $800 and $900 million. And it's not going to reach that $1 billion goal that Warner Brothers Studios had wanted. If it could reach $1 billion, awesome. But based on what we're seeing right now, it is projected to be anywhere between 800 and 900 million. So that's what's happening. But I don't see how that could be a failure. In fact, I think that's a huge success for a film like this. So I think that's a great job. So let's move on and talk about what's upcoming for us in the DC Extended Universe. First of all, it is possible that we're not going to see Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor in Justice League Part 1. And Jesse Eisenberg mentioned that there has been no talk about his character coming back. They haven't talked to him about filming. But so what's going to happen to LexCorp? Well, if you don't already know, there is a LexCorp Instagram account. And on the LexCorp Instagram account, it says something pretty interesting. It says here, we hope we haven't lost you as our valuable client, LexCorp. Something big is coming. Our newest project will be fully functioning by 2017. Thank you for standing by our side. Hashtag time for change. Now, it's possible that we're not going to see LexCorp in Justice League Part 1, but we are going to see LexCorp in Justice League Part 2. After all, they would start filming Justice League Part 2 in 2017. So I think that we're going to see Jesse Eisenberg back as Lex Luthor for Justice League Part 2. Alright, so that's what's going on. Now, if LexCorp is not going to play a part as a villainous entity in Justice League Part 1, who's going to be playing the villain? Because after all, you would want Darkseid, who is the Thanos of the DC Extended Universe, to fight the Justice League. Well, that's coming in Part 2. Then the Part 1 villain is going to be something entirely different. Now, there is a rumor suggesting that Atlantis has to do with the main antagonist. Now, Atlantis, of course, the mythical underwater city that is the home of Aquaman. And the rumor suggests that Aquaman could possibly be the villain in Justice League Part 1. Now, this is all just a rumor. It could be something entirely different, but this is what's going on. And if they're doing this, it feels like they're kind of repeating what they're doing in Dawn of Justice, or rather Batman vs. Superman, which is have the heroes fight each other. And now they're going to have Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman fight Aquaman. Is that what's going on now? But it could happen. After all, we're talking about two different worlds here, and one world is kind of interrupting the peace and tranquility of the other world. So it could happen, and if that really happens, I won't be surprised if it does happen. So pretty interesting stuff to look forward to. Moving on, let's talk about some other DC Extended Universe films. The Flash. The Flash will be coming out in, when is that? March 23rd of 2018. And it is rumored that Cyborg will be the sidekick for the Flash. Now, if you read the comics, Cyborg and the Flash did have a bit of a friendship. So that's no surprise if that is really happening. Cyborg will play a supporting role. The Flash will play the main protagonist. And if that really does happen, that's going to be pretty cool, because they're going to play out some of the stories, or rather they can play out some of the stories that took place in the comics where they needed each other. So if that really happens, that's going to be pretty awesome, because it's going to serve as I guess a prologue to the Cyborg film, which will come later on on April 5th, or rather not April 5th, April 3rd, 2020. Yes, that's when the Cyborg film is coming. Quite a ways from now, but that's not the first time we're going to see Cyborg. We're going to see Cyborg in Justice League Parts 1 and 2. And possibly The Flash. Alright? Finally, last thing I got to talk about is what is happening with that Man of Steel sequel, if at all. Well, Henry Cavill and Zack Snyder both expressed their interest and in a Man of Steel sequel. Let me just read you what they had to say. Okay, I think we could get a good script. I think if we could get a good script, it would be great to have a standalone Superman movie. I think that would be fun to do. Part of the reason we haven't announced the standalone Superman movie was to support some of the events of Batman vs. Superman. I do believe it depends upon the success of this movie. If this goes well, then we can start to negotiate with Warner Bros. To develop a standalone Superman. But they've got their plan set out for other stuff and Justice Leagues and various other movies. It's about finding the time, really. It's something I would be very keen to do. So, if Man of Steel were to happen, I mean the sequel, then Zack Snyder would definitely be on board. Henry Cavill, of course, will definitely be on board. And it all depends on the success of Batman vs. Superman. If Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, makes $1 billion, I'm positive that Warner Brothers is game for a Man of Steel sequel. Maybe it will take that slot that they just recently announced. Now, if Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice doesn't do as well as they would hope for, like bringing in probably the low 800s in the millions, then I think that what they're going to go for is a Batman solo film. After all, Batman as an entity is their flagship comic book go-to character. It's their flagship. This is the third reboot, and Batman is crazy popular in the comic book world. I mean, Superman is too, but Superman we've already seen on film before, and the box office already shows that Batman is a more popular character. I mean, just look at the Dark Knight sequels. So that tells you right now that if they are going to be bringing in the Batman film, it's probably going to be a bigger success than a Man of Steel sequel. So it really all depends on the success, or rather the final box office take from Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. Now, that's all I got to say in this video. Warner Brothers announced two dates, October 5th, 2018 and November 1st, 2019. What do you guys think those dates will be for? What are the two DC Extended Universe titles? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, let me know what films you would like to see. To be completely honest, I would like to see definitely the Batman solo film, and also, you know what? I would say a Man of Steel sequel. I want to see him go up against Brainiac. That's just what I want. Right now, I can't say that I want to see a Suicide Squad sequel until I've seen Suicide Squad. So, based on that alone, I think that Warner Brothers will announce what those two films will be as soon as we get we go through maybe the second or third weekend of Suicide Squad, and then they'll have an idea of how much movie or how much revenue is generated from this franchise alone. So anyways, that's all I got to say in this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation. Also follow me on Twitter at Ragin Nation. My name's Alex Yu. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace. Fighting style is like, and I love the brutal nature of it. In fact, I didn't mind that he used guns. I didn't mind that he stabbed thugs with knives.